Hello, I'm Andrew Hara, the host of the Mom Squad. I wanted to tell you about my movies. All are available on Tubi, which is a free streaming service. The last one is a zombie drama about how a pandemic and isolation could drive a group of people mad. When the virus hits, John finds himself alone and scared until he meets Michael, his protector. But when Karina, another survivor, enters the mix, everything that John and Michael knew will be turned on its head. The last one is a zombie virus movie that's somehow even more relevant today. Plus, it has zombies. Check it out. Borderland is a mexploitation film about living in El Paso. When Sarah finds herself in debt to the cartels, she has until sunrise to find some missing monies with the help of her executioner. Borderland is a true midnight movie and a lot of fun. Finally, the documentary Humble Spirits tells the story of the Hahn family, including champion Jennifer Hahn from El Paso, Texas. The entire Hahn family has grown up in the combat sports and has helped shape who they are both in and out of the ring. Humble Spirits, a family of fighters, is the perfect documentary for boxing fans of all ages. Check out Tubi to watch all my films. And now, let's start the show. Andrew Hana, and guess what? It's just the two banditos today. Just me and Josh. It's the two banditos. So if you guys are missing the original podcast that wasn't that successful, well, guess what? You're in luck because we're talking Hellraiser 4 Bloodline. Hellraiser 4 was directed in 1996 by Alan Smithy, who, if you guys don't know, Alan Smithy is when a director hates their film and they change they can't you can't take your name off, you can just replace it with another name. So for years the industry standard was just to name it Alan Smithy, and that's because the director hated this so much. um
Yeah,
and
I
Yeah,
can
so that's
understand that.
fun. It's a rare Alan Smithy project. Usually nowadays people just like put it on Tubi. um but yeah. Also, I kind of feel okay. We get into it in a second, but yeah, it was directed by Alan Smithy. It stars Adam Scott
Well,
for
he's in
some
it.
reason.
I did enjoy seeing him in this.
Of course, Doug Bradley comes back. Bruce Ramsey is the main star, and Valentina Vargas, Latina representation, great for us. She's Chilean and French, the two best things to me, I guess. But yeah, Josh, tell us what this movie is about, but
Oh
just from the
man,
point of view of that one perverted guy.
can I do it from the point of view of the two security guard twin brothers?
Yes.
um, no, so Pinhead is chasing a guy through his bloodline, and it takes
Well,
us. Well, demons are, and then Pinhead gets involved, but it takes us all the way from Renaissance era France to the year 2127 aboard a base space station. So,
yeah. So yeah, so this movie is about like it's kind of about the creation of the box, the Lament configuration, and it starts off as we start off in like the in French in the fucking French Revolution. We start in the future as like these guards are coming in, and by the way, okay, those guards have no urgency whatsoever. Like I didn't know what they were doing, if they were part of it or if they knew what was happening, but they've apparently come to arrest someone, and they're just kind of slowly walking. Their guns are pointed at the ground, and
you know
so
what?
I was a
You
little
know what I
bit
like though,
confused.
like because they're arresting this guy, but he's trying to do the box, but he's doing it with like a robot, and it's
Yeah,
like how police disarm a bomb, and it's like
right.
obviously that's not going to work, but that's a clever trick to like
And it looks like a
try.
Terminator robot that you would get from Kmart.
It definitely does look like an
Like,
off-brand. It Everything in this movie is a little off-brand.
and Pinhead comes out and he destroys the robot, and then the cops are like, "You're under arrest," and he's like, "No." So then like there's like a space detective, and she's like, "Hey, we want you to leave with us," and he's like, "I can't leave with you because I have to finish my mission." And they're like, "What's your mission?" And she's like, "I have to tell you from the beginning." So then we travel back to like 16th century France in 1796. The film takes place in 1796, 1996, and 2127. So we're now in 1796 as this toy maker is making the box for this rich aristocrat. And Adam Scott is the aristocrat's lover, friend. I don't know. It's not clear. But he's
He
there as well.
he's one of those like ambiguous but evil and aristocrats who
Yeah.
just loves to kill
But
people.
it doesn't make sense why he's there helping. Because, like, what is he planning to get? I mean, I know eventually we find out. But what does the count or whatever expect him to get out of it? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, this honestly, I will say I was super hyped when this opened on a space station in the year 2027, and then I was way less hyped when it jumped back to France. So I was like, oh,
Well, you're wrong because Pinhead and the Cenobites 100% deserve to be in 1796. It's like kind of perfect because that was like this weird age where like sexual, like, because history is full of sexual freedom and exploration. But 1796 is kind of where like this sexual repression starts to come in with like the church imposing heavy sanctions. The Church of England is being created because the king wants to get a divorce and doesn't want to kill his wife, but he will if he has to. um, and so you have this like perfect image of like people seeking out the same explorations that in Greece might have been not taboo are now being shunned for it. So now it's become taboo. So now they're going for the most extreme thing, and that would be, of course, getting the lament configuration to bring the Cenobites. And so here's a weird thing that happens. They get this prostitute and they hire her and they bring her. She might not be a prostitute. She's poor for sure.
yeah.
And I don't know if she was 100% a
She,
prostitute,
she is
but
she is impressed by his magician tricks, which I think another rich
oh
person would
yeah,
not be.
the count.
Like he
I mean, she's
pulls a
definitely
foot
poor,
cloth from behind her ear or something
and
like
the count is also an old school magician for no
that.
reason. Like it
Like an
doesn't come up.
illusionist, yeah.
Yeah. So she meets him, and then they're like, "Oh, we're gonna tie you up," and she's like, "What's this for?" And then they bring down the chains, and they have her open the box, and they call the Cenobites. Oh no, no, no! Because they tie her up, and then the toy maker shows up, and he's like, "Hey, I finally finished the box for you. Aren't you happy?" And he's like, "I am. Give it to me." And he leaves. But it's like, what if the toy maker finished the box like randomly? It wasn't like planned to be done that day.
Well,
So
they
like,
like you show like the toy maker arguing with like his wife or whatever, and he's like, "Look," she's like, "Well, yeah, what does it do though?" And he's like, "I'll just take it where it's appreciated." And I'm like, "What? No, that's a valid question. This is a
yeah, they
very
don't ever answer.
confusing
Right.
thing you made."
So then the toy maker's like watching from the window as like the lament configuration takes that girl's body apart, and then they give her the soul of a demon. And so here's a weird thing. This is about the creation of the lament configuration and all that. Pinhead does not show up until 1996. I guess it's because he didn't technically exist.
Yeah, they kind of imply like it's like, oh, the demons have changed in the modern
Yeah,
era, like they've gotten worse.
yeah. But anyway, so
It is messy though.
we have this female Cenobite who's played well by the Chilean Valentina Vargas. She does a good job, but it's just like it's kind of off. Like, why am I focusing on this girl? But anyway, so then the toy maker watches. Sorry. So then the toy maker watches them do this, and then he's like, "Oh no, what have I done? The demon making box. I didn't realize they were going to use it to make demons." And so he like goes to a chiropractor or like an autopsyist for some reason. And the guy's like opening a body in a really cool way. And he's like, "Well, if the box helps you bring demons, just make another box, it'll destroy them." And he's like, "Oh yeah, okay." And then he just starts drawing. Like there's no like brainstorming session for how to make a box that kills demons. And so then we see him do the box, and then we see that Adam Scott has betrayed the magician and killed him, and now he controls the demon. And also, there's only one rule with the demons: they'll do whatever you want. which to Adam Scott just means sex. But they'll do whatever you want as long as you never get in their way. So then,
That's a weird
we,
rule, by the way, because
well, and we'll talk about it in literally 1 second. But then they kill the toy maker, and then we just jump forward to 1996, and now we're in that building from part three that I didn't realize was going to come back.
yeah, I liked that though. I was like, oh, you're picking it back up.
Yeah, and so now um, oh, by the way, the wife in the 1996 version, that's the girl from Freddy's Dead 2. I mean, Freddy's Revenge, Freddy Part 2. Derek called me on this last week, but I seriously refer to the Nightmare franchise as Freddy's Dead. So
You
if
go
I'm
by
talking
the
about
best
like,
movie,
yeah, if
so
I'm talking about Dream Warriors, I'll refer to it as Freddy's Dead 3, but it's not. Those are Freudian slips, guys. But yeah, so now we're in 1996. He's a big time architect and he loves architecting. And his wife is from Freddy's Revenge, which is she's still doing a good job, but she doesn't really have anything to do. And so then he's like, "Oh, I have this box," and he keeps having these dreams about the aristocrat. And then he kind of realizes, oh, and then he runs into Valentina, and they bone for a ridiculously long time.
yeah,
And
there's yeah.
yeah, and then she opens the box, and then Pinhead comes out, and he's like, "What's up, girl? I haven't seen you in
I, I
forever."
do like this scene though because the guy that because the box in the last movie was thrown into the concrete foundation, so they go down to the basement to get it,
Mhm.
and she's basically just seducing this guy, and she's like,
Yeah.
"Hold on a sec," and punches through pure concrete to grab the box out of the wall, and he's like, "So we having sex yet?" It's like, no, that is that
You
is a
don't have
red
any other
flag.
questions? Yeah.
That this attractive woman just punched through a wall to get a
Who weighs like
box.
110 pounds? Yeah.
Right, yeah.
And so she gets a box and she brings out Pinhead, and Pinhead's like, "What's up?" And then there's two twin security guards.
They're twin brothers, twin actors,
And
playing twin security guards.
much
Yeah,
like every twin in the 90s, they finish each other's sentences.
they're comedy twins, and they're talking about would you sleep with a trans woman, and they do come to the conclusion that yes, they would, but
Yes.
it is a very let's just say they'd be canceled today because
Yeah, it's not the best representation.
it's
I mean, at least they
it's
come
not
to the
great.
correct conclusion, but
Yeah,
yeah.
they come around to it, but
So then they run into them, and like, I don't even know what happens because they put like a half a mask on both sides of their faces, and then they somehow like put something in their hair and twist it so that it takes off their skin, and so now they're connected forever because they're like, "Please don't kill us," and then um, Pinhead's like, "I'll never separate you," and then he puts them together forever. And so then, oh, and then they kill Adam Scott because Adam Scott has survived to 1996 because he's been helping the demon. But then she wants to like go see the architect, and he's like, "No, I want to have sex." And she's like, "You got in hell's way." But then he's like, "Oh, I'm sorry, I won't do that again." But she kills him anyway. So like, those are like gremlin rules of like they just kind of follow them however they see fit.
yeah, they seem like the kind of rules that it's like, no, you're gonna die the first chance that they
Yeah.
get.
Which
Yeah,
to me, I mean, I didn't mind that because it makes sense. Like, of course, the demons are gonna have shitty rules that you can contradict whenever you want. So yeah, so then they like save everyone, but they kill the dad, and then they're like, oh, nowhere. And then we cut to the future finally, and the guy's like, oh, I finally finished that box that you need to kill the demons, but it has to be in
it's like the
space.
reverse puzzle box. Like
Yeah, it
it
like
traps
tightens
them
up in the
forever.
middle. Yeah.
Yeah, like it can't be I don't know. They're vague about it, but basically it stomps Pinhead.
Yeah, it stops Pinhead. So then they're like, okay, I guess we can do this. And then Pinhead comes down. He like kills a bunch of the soldiers, and then they leave, and then they blow up Pinhead. Spoiler alert. Sorry. But anyway, okay. So here's the thing. I like this movie a lot. It's kind of like halfway through. Like there's a part in the middle where Pinhead has the 1996 guy's son, and
he's like, "Oh, I'll give them to you if you like give me what I want." And like I was just watching it, and I was like, like you look at you know Freddy the 13th. Do I know anything? You look at the Texas Chainsaw movies. You look at Jason. You look at Saw. You look at Scream. You look at Hostel. You look at uh, the Babadooks. You look at the Conjurings. You look at Megan Part One and Two. You look.
I was just
Wait,
gonna see if you could name 40
I
more
was
horror
running out.
movies.
But you look at all those movies and like they kind of get dumber with every installment, or they get more simplified. You know, like in the first Texas, it's like they're going out there because they're like um there's all this buildup where like you know that someone's been messing with the funerals, but you don't know what they've been doing. Like they've been messing with the graves. The family's there to see their graves, and they're gonna go swim, and they want to look at the grandpa's house, and so they find this other house, and they're just kind of walking around, and then Leatherface attacks. And like with Freddy or like with Jason especially, like they like by the fourth or fifth one, it doesn't even matter who the main characters are because they're just fodder for the thing. And so it's interesting to watch a sequel this far into a franchise that's actually going for something. It's like trying. It's like this is pretty ambitious of a
It's
movie.
very ambitious.
Yeah,
Yes, it's get well. I would say it's kind of double sided because it has some of the trappings that like you didn't even mention it because it's not really worth mentioning, but there's like a Cenobite dog at one point.
oh my god, I love this in about
It's like I do feel like horror franchises like to be like, all right, let's add a dog version of our monster, like Alien 3, that terrible
there's
Predator movie. Um,
there's a Cinnabite dog, and he shows up twice, and both times you can clearly tell it's a real dog that they've dressed up because he just kind of walks around like a dog.
but I like this movie is really ambitious, and I do like kind of the concept of just like this bloodline, the titular
Yeah.
bloodline that we're following. But I almost feel like the Cinnabite stuff outside of Pinhead is like getting weaker every, like
It's kind of like if I had done this movie, I'm kind of glad that they continued this story from three. But if I had done this movie, I would have skipped two, and I would have just pretended that backstory about Pinhead being uh
a World War
fucking
II guy.
a World War II guy. I would have just not. I would have not.
Yeah,
Because here's the thing,
it's
like
doing the time frame, like because the first
yeah,
one implies that they've been around since like before humans,
mhm,
and this one's almost like no, they've been around for like 50 years. Don't worry about it.
exactly.
Like that, and that to me like kind of
It
dilutes
kind
like
of takes
the
away from their scariness. Yeah.
yeah.
Because if they've always existed, kind of like Cthulhu, if they've always been and they always will be, that's terrifying. But if they've only been here for like 50 years, I mean, come on. We've had capitalism for longer than that, and it's made way more problems.
It's like interesting to me though, and you can answer this because I haven't seen the other six movies. I assume they all just take place in the modern day. Like this is the only one that takes place in the future. Um,
Yeah, for the most part. I think they do some light skipping, like sometimes it'll take place in the 90s, even though it's filmed in the
right,
50s.
but okay, so this means like canonically, and obviously we're not talking about like comic books or whatever. Who gives a shit? This means like Pinhead like loses, and we know exactly when he loses, and he never comes back. You know what I mean?
Yeah, like if you watch this movie and the remake, it'll still make sense. And it'll be like, oh, Pinhead's gonna die in 150 years.
Yeah, like his ultimate death is
Yeah.
105 years away. And it's like that's kind
Yeah,
of
yeah.
interesting to have the ending to the entire franchise just in the middle of it, and then you never address that again. It's
Yeah,
cool.
because it's so far away. Yeah. Also, okay, so Bruce Ramsey plays the main character, and I do want to appreciate their commitment to never giving him a wig that looked good, like he's in the room.
Yeah.
He looks terrible in every timeline, and in the last timeline, he has a bald head, and they still managed to make him look kind of dorky
That's
with
probably
that
his
bald
best look, though.
head. It is.
Um, yeah.
But on the other hand, we got 90s extreme Adam Scott. And he's got like the fucking emo hair over his eyeball.
He really embraced the decade. Yeah.
He's wearing a suit that's too big, and it looks like both a lounge and a business suit from the both from the 90s and from the
I
1800s.
I
It
almost
makes no
wanted
sense.
it to be like Biff, where there's a future version of him still, even though he dies in the 90s. That like
I know. I wanted to see.
his great great grandson is there causing problems.
Yeah. He's like, "Hey, Gramps," and he's talking to like a Adam Squad in like old man makeup, who's still like from the 1700s.
Yeah.
Also, okay, so then there's another scene where Pinhead. This is in the future, and Pinhead, and we might even see if we can bring this scene in. And Pinhead is talking straight to the camera, and the camera is so close that it hits his nose, and it like his like nose is pushing on the lens.
Oh, I didn't even notice. That's funny though.
It's the funniest looking shot. And that's why I think I'm gonna try to at least get away with it. Because it's the dumbest thing I've ever seen. Because like Pinhead is naturally scary. There's only one way I could think he's not scary. If you put the camera so close to him that he's visibly uncomfortable. I think that that would be the only shot that could make him scary. But so yeah, I think like it is this weird thing where this movie, I don't know, like people, everyone, when you talk to people, especially even fans of the franchise, they'll be like, "Oh, I really liked one and two are great, but then after that they fall off." And I kind of feel like, I mean, maybe this is just because we like garbage, but I don't ever feel like any of these movies. I mean, obviously one is way better than the other ones, but
Yeah,
then
no,
after that, it's
definitely.
kind of a crapshoot to see which one's the best. Like they all have their own merits that are really well done. You know?
Like to me, and then again, going in totally blind, I assumed every movie after the first two would just be kind of like three, where it's just like someone unlucky finds it. They, some that they resolve it by the end. Um, this is the only one that was like, oh, like this really does take me by surprise. And maybe they do mix it up a lot after this, but I wouldn't know. I haven't seen them, so
Yeah. Well, and see, and I think like just I don't know the kind of ideas that this guy has been trying to stop these people like for literally thousands of years or hundreds of years. It's a pretty cool idea. Like it's in their blood to stop the thing they created. I think it's a very interesting idea. I mean, even though she does kind of feel out of place, the the woman Pinhead is like I
no,
don't know. She's
Angelique. Yeah,
Angelique. She's just kind of cool. When she comes at the end as a Cenobite, and like they've pulled back her skin so you can see like her skull sticking out of the top of her head. I don't know. It just looks cool. She's a cool character.
and there is like it's interesting to me the idea of a demon is like, oh no, like the Cenobites are freaks. I don't want in on that, and then she like kind of forcibly has to like
Yeah,
join them. It's like I don't know.
yeah. It kind of
It's interesting.
it
Yeah,
kind of like it again. It like expands the whole world of the Cenobites because you realize that there's like in the other ones they kind of hinted that there's other demons, but in this one like because in the other ones when you would see other demons they would just be like um they wouldn't talk. You know what I'm saying? Like they
yeah.
were like it was like the big penis monster and the big hallway monster, but they were just like kind of like so demonic that they didn't even have human emotions. But to see Angelique, you're like, oh, this one is smart, and she's also willing to like
It's
to
like
to
agency.
dust it up. Yeah.
Yeah. Did you notice that too? That the big monster from the first one, like you see its silhouette in this one.
No, I didn't
Like
notice that.
like
What
when
is
they're
that?
yeah, like when like the thing's opening in the modern day, like the first guy who opens it. Um,
Yeah.
you like see that thing, and it doesn't like come out, but I was like, oh, that's the same one. So good
It's pretty
job,
cool. Good
guys.
job. And
Good job
also,
bringing it back.
I think it was cool that they this is the first one because like in all the movies the box opens but this is the first one where the box opening looks pretty cool like the I guess it's because it's the first time but like you see the things changing and the lights really going and it's going crazy and I don't know I just like this is the first time I really appreciated the box opening.
Yeah.
It was a good
Yeah,
job.
the effects were very, I don't know, they were definitely, they felt like TV show sci-fi effects, but I think for the most part they're pretty good. Like
Yeah,
especially
see,
in the future.
yeah, there was a
A
shot
guy
where
tries to kill him with a plasma rifle or something, and it's just like, and it doesn't work. But you're like, oh, I guess you would try that.
it's kind of like there's a shot at the beginning where you see a ship go by and it's like PS1 effects. But if you're like, I mean, there's gonna be a point where you have to say, hey, effects don't
Yeah,
matter as long as the
if you
story's being
if you've
fulfilled.
ever enjoyed Star Trek, you've seen like worse, you know. So
If you've ever enjoyed any Marvel after the first Avengers, you've seen on par special effects with this.
yeah.
And so yeah, I think it's cool. I think it's like I don't know. I think um, it's a good way to kind of like take this to another level. Like the idea that Pinhead's in space and he just kind of like he's never like, where am I? Is this a new? He's just kind of like, oh, okay, cool. Let's kill more people. You know?
He's just like, oh yeah, Earth. Like there it is. I'm gonna go kill a lot of
Yeah.
people on it.
And see, and here's the thing to me is that the movie itself isn't that like the movie itself does have special like there's literally only three sets. It's like the space station, the French mansion estate thing, and then like the building from part three. The only one that's allowed to have more than one set is the 1996 one because it takes place in modern times. So they'll go to like an apartment. Um,
Yeah. I
but
mean, it's fine though.
this like yes the special effects are a little grainy but the acting is on par and so because of that it's kind of hard to be like oh this movie has no merits like everyone's really trying everyone's doing a good job even if it's kind of a little bit campy you know and I just think it works really well and if you can get past the special effects you'll enjoy it also here's something that only would like it's like such a Hollywood thing but did you notice that in every timeline they made sure to give the main character some kind of love interest to show that he liked girls.
Yeah. Well, yeah, because it's the space cop in the future. Yeah,
Exactly. Like,
he
there's
like
no reason for
saves.
that character to even exist. I guess
I
for a framing device, but yeah,
I
it's
do have a theory about this movie that no one will care about. I don't know.
theory it up.
Maybe the kind of person who listens to this podcast.
Yeah.
But just
What's the
attack them.
theory? Yeah.
So
Take
in
that, our fans.
you're familiar with Star Wars.
No.
You're familiar with the Star Wars franchise.
Yeah.
So before, well, I guess while the prequels were being made, but you know how like before that really happened, before the prequels were like fully out, they did a bunch of like here's novels about what happened to like Luke and Leia and Han afterwards.
Yeah.
The expanded universe, pretty terrible. And one of their main terrible ideas for like what's the new threat now that like the Empire is gone was a race of like alien monsters called the Yuzon Vong, and they're all like BDSM fetish monsters who were like immune to the Force. Like they wear like leather and they have like spikes and like the Force, like oh the Force can't hurt them. And it's like why the fuck are like the Jedi fighting like BDSM monsters?
That was pretty
And that
awesome.
came out like 3 years after this movie. So I feel like one of those Star Wars writers saw this and is like, holy shit, we got to put these
Well,
guys in Star Wars. Like he saw like Pinhead looking at Earth and he's like, perfect.
that's an idea that comes straight from Georgie Boy because he even wanted them to be the bad guys for the sequel, didn't he?
Did he?
And that's when Disney was like, okay. And then they closed the door in his face in a
he,
comical fashion.
no, I think, well, maybe. I thought he wanted it to be like one of those like weird spiritual things. These definitely
Keep in
feel like
mind
something
that
else.
George Lucas, he has like three ideas. And when he has those ideas, like, he won't stop talking about them until he does them. Like, you know, like
I think he
with Indiana
wanted
Jones, he
like,
wanted aliens from like Temple of Doom, and he kept pushing, and they kept like saying no, and then finally they relented, and they're like, fine.
but I do think I know what you're talking about, but I think George wanted like kind of like mystic new age aliens that they fight, not like BDSM horror
I would have
shows.
rather had him fighting like Yoda going up against the Pinhead. That would have been super cool.
Yeah, I
And then
mean,
someone was like,
in
"Hey
theory.
George, are they gonna be clones?" And he was like, "Why would they be clones?" And they're like, "Because of the Clone Wars." And he was like, "Oh yeah."
It does feel like he forgot that he called it the Clone Wars until he was about 70% through writing the.
It feels like he forgot it was the Clone Wars until Episode 2, Attack of the Clones.
Oh no, I
Because
meant
they're not
writing
the
episode 2. Like
yeah.
he was like, "Oh shit, there need to be clones in this."
I know.
But we could talk about Star Wars forever. But that did strike me when I saw when this movie came out and then when the Yuzon Vong became a thing.
That is
So
funny that he was like, yeah, he was the only person who came out of this movie and was like, it'd be cool if the Jedi's fought those guys.
Yeah.
Which would be cool. You should have done it, George. I would have liked him way more than Count
You
Dooku.
say
You
that,
know
but
what?
you're not reading those shitty novels from like 1999 called like the
But
Dark Star
Darth
Chronicles.
Maul. Think about what Darth Maul
Okay,
looks
Darth Maul
like.
kind of is like that. Now that you've said
He
it.
is. Darth Maul's just alien pinhead. He even has the spikes out of his head. But yeah, so I think we've gone off tangent. But I think it's that thing where it's like this movie it doesn't really have themes other than like the generic like fight for what you believe in, but it is interesting in how it examines and how the director chooses to go at the Pinhead mythology. Because like if you told me, hey Andrew, here's $1 million, go make the next Pinhead, time traveling through all the different time periods would not have been it would have taken me 10 years to think of this idea, and it's such a good idea, and it's
Yeah.
executed pretty well. Like maybe not as great as it could have been, but good enough, you know.
Yeah, and I guess I would say like I can't think of another franchise that does something so dramatic, you
Yeah,
know?
and you
Like
know we love French Revolution era things. We did
like at most
Brotherhood.
they'll do the Alien versus Predator thing where they're like actually 3,000 years ago they
Yeah,
came to Earth. It's like I don't that's not interesting to me.
yeah, they'll do like a little flashback to show that they were here like a million times ago for like 2 minutes. This movie takes place like half of it is in France for no reason, and
You know
so
what?
like
You know what? Actually, we didn't cover this, but I do wonder which came first. 1996, Escape from L.A. The very end of that movie, he gets away by tricking people with a hologram, and in this very same movie, Pinhead is tricked with a hologram in a similar way. So
well, it
the
doesn't matter because
protagonist
Total
is
Recall came out in 1990, and that's where they got the idea
oh well,
from.
there you go.
Total Recall, guys, go check it out. Yeah, and I think like okay, so here's another thing that I realized while watching this is that I really watched the Pinhead movies when I was a little baby, and we would watch it because they showed it all the time for some
You
reason on
shouldn't have done
Telemundo.
that.
Well, I realized that like Godzilla, He-Man, and Hellraiser were three things that I watched a lot of because they showed it because in America, like after 8 in the morning, they stopped showing cartoons during the week. So if you're like sick, you have to watch like The Price is Right or something like not cool.
That's
But
true.
if you go to Telemundo, they're always showing movies because Telemundo don't give a fuck. And so the movies that they would show like cartoons until like noon. And since they were like 2 years behind, they were showing He-Man cartoons. And then they would show movies and they would usually show like a Godzilla or a horror movie. And I remember watching like the first time I saw Bloodlines was in complete Spanish. And so I think that every franchise I like, I only like them because I saw them as a baby in Spanish. And I assume that they're Mexican movies and they're not at all.
If I saw Hellraiser when I was 6, I would not have like slept for like 2 days.
Yeah, but we were also watching like Aliens and Predator when we were like 5 years old.
Yeah, I guess yeah. I don't know, but I
I
don't know.
love
Hellraiser's so
horror.
like sinister because you don't even just die; you're like
Yeah,
tortured forever. You
but
know.
I feel like I didn't understand that, and they always won in the end. And so to me, it was kind of like watching like an action movie. You know, like in action movies, like guys die, but the main hero usually lives, and they usually kill the bad guy.
That is true.
So it just kind
Yeah.
of felt similar. But yeah, so okay, so here's the thing. we were going to watch. We're like William is working, or he's like doing
And he's
personal things.
moving.
He's moving, yeah, and so he's not going to be here for a couple of weeks. And then we want to do our 100 episode countdown. We also want to do our best of the year, but we want to wait for William, of course, being the third member of the Bomb Squad. So we got movies, and like originally I was going to say we'll just keep doing Hellraiser movies and do another franchise. But here's the thing, and it might have been because I was super baked out of my mind. I don't think any movie, and I've watched them, so I know, but I don't think any of the movies are going to be able to top Pinhead exploding on a space station after being tricked by a hologram. It feels like
Yeah.
such a
Well,
perfect end to this
yeah, it's like
franchise.
it's literally the end to the franchise, like chronologically, you know? No, I
Yeah,
agree. I mean, if we can skip the last five that just sound like they get worse and worse,
and
then
maybe we'll get back to them because there's funny stuff in the rest of them. And like, I generally think that the last one before the remake, which had like a dumb name like Judgment Day or Resurrection or whatever, I generally think that one's good, and I do want to explore at least that one again. But I think for now we've had our fill of the labyrinth configuration, and we're closing the box and sending it up to space to fight Terminator robots. Um, and so I think next week we're going to come with a whole new movie. I don't know if William will be here. I don't think he will. But please join us and we'll be back to do that. Also, I don't know if you know this, but on my film channel, we are doing a not a preview of all the shorts that are going to be coming out next year on that film channel. I don't know if you know this from every commercial I put before the episode, but I'm a filmmaker. And so on my YouTube channel, I like to put shorts. So go check out those shorts. Go subscribe to that channel. Go watch the new video to see what shorts are coming. There's also a special surprise for Bomb Squad fans that you're really going to like or not. It doesn't, either way, it's up there. And you'll see it
you'll have a
individually.
reaction to them.
Yes, you'll have a
Good
reaction
or
to something. And the next month, it'll be the first short coming out, the Bomb Squad movie starring us. But yeah, so go check that out. Again, we appreciate everyone. The Skeletor video should be coming soon. But thank you for joining us on the Bomb Squad, and we'll see you guys all next week.
It's the
Thanks for watching the Bomb Squad. Please, while you're here, give us a like and a subscribe. We really appreciate it and it means a lot.